Hey guys, and welcome back to the Online Trainer Show. So today in episode 13 of the podcast, we interview Carter Good, who is an online coach and who is also someone who has grown an Instagram following to the high heights of over 400,000 now. If you haven't followed Carter, you've probably seen some of his stuff on your highlight reels and also on your sort of Instagram from his amazing infographics, which has really built his Instagram page to where it is today. So in this episode, we really go over talking about Instagram, the tips he's used to grow it, what he thinks coaches should be focusing on now, and also what he's specifically focusing on now the way that Instagram is going, and the algorithms of what they are. So this is a great listen for anyone that is worried about not growing big followings, but focusing on who they are really connecting with their actual following. So I hope you enjoy this one, and obviously make sure you check out Carter's links in the description of this podcast and enjoy the show. Right, hello there, and welcome back to the Online Trainer Show. So in today's episode, we have Carter Good, who's joining us here on the podcast. Very honoured to have him on the podcast. Those of you that don't know Carter, you've probably seen his work, especially if you're just scrolling through your Instagram feed without even knowing. I'm sure you would have seen his amazing infographics and content, and also his weight loss transformation, which is, I think it was over 140 pounds, was it?
Yeah, right around there. Yeah.
Which is just epic. So thank you for coming on. How are you doing, mate?
Absolutely, thank you, man. I'm doing well. Just chilling. I guess it's later for you right now, but it's like a beautiful day, like the first fall day where I live. So I'm doing well.
What sort of time is it where you are at the minute then?
Like during the day, like what time of the day?
Yeah.
Or it's like afternoon, like 1 p.m.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And so yeah,
you got
very cool. It's like you're in the you got it like 9 p.m. something like that.
Yeah, well we're about 6 o'clock at the minute, so yeah, we're sort of coming towards the end of the day. It's getting colder now in the UK. Sounds like you've got the sun, and it looks like you've got the sun on your face as well.
A little bit. Like where I live, I live in a state called Ohio, and like they have like every season, and this time of the year, it's like one day can be everything. It can be like summer, and then it can be like autumn, and then it can like start snowing, and then it can like start raining, and then the sun can come back out, and so. But no, this is like my favorite time of the year for sure. It's not like it's like crazy hot. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, very glad to get you on the show today. So let's just start off by talking about, I guess, like your journey so far into especially online coaching, because I'm sure your transformation probably sparked off what became your online coaching journey. So how did you actually get into it? Because I've seen stuff on Instagram. I've seen obviously your story. But I'm sure some of the listeners would love to know about how you actually became about becoming a coach from your transformation and from like over the years of what you've done.
Yeah, for sure. And so, and I'm sure a lot of people follow a similar path of like when you first get started, it comes from having your own, experience with fitness, right? So for me, it's like a brief like background. So like having lost 140 pounds. So, obviously, and I don't know if you want to go more into that later, but like through doing that, I lost a ton of weight and got super into fitness and got super passionate about it. And I actually did that all back in high school. So this was back in like 2012, 2013. And, after I had lost weight, I had, kind of went to college and was doing some other things, but all along the way, there were moments when it was either a friend from my childhood or just somebody even, who just like came up, like heard my story or whatever, like would ask me questions, right? Of like, hey, how'd you do this? Or how'd you do that? And, I would help them every once in a while, like ask questions. And like sometimes people would want to like come to the gym and work out with me or just ask me general nutrition information. So it really just started out as something where people would just ask for advice and I would just be giving advice. And then one thing led to another and it happened more and more. And I was starting to say, okay, I not only do I like doing this, but it seems like I actually, can give value to other people by doing it. So that's really where it all started. Was just from, and I bet that's very similar for a lot of people. It's like they have people in their lives who see that they were successful, and that's kind of how they get into it. So
yeah, I think I agree, and it's something that with myself as well. I first started getting into online coaching when I did a contest prep. That was when I really realized that this is what I want to pursue. So it sounds like it's very similar with yourself, like a big weight loss transformation. It sparks people's interest, doesn't it? And then people come to you from that. So your actual weight loss transformation itself, it wasn't what you kind of, I guess, was what you preach now, because it's like in terms of the way you did it. with the foods and everything, because it wasn't the flexible dieting and the efficient macros.
Not at all, yeah.
What was it that you actually did for the weight loss transformation then?
Yeah, so it's funny because I did everything incorrectly in terms of how I would want somebody else to do it. And I guess it's just one of those weird things where like I just got so addicted to losing weight. So whenever I started, very stereotypical, like high school, a girl like broke my heart kind of deal. And like and that's why I started losing weight. Right. But for me, like once I had lost like 20 or 30 pounds, because up until this point, I was always like a chubbier kid and I had like gone on and off diets. Like I even remember whenever I was younger playing football, like American football, like, and it was called Pee Wee football, basically just kids, and you had like weight limits. So if you wanted to run, like be somebody who played like quarterback or whatever, you had to weigh under a certain amount. And even back then, like being a little bit chubbier and having to go on a diet to like lose weight. But it was never really a major issue until in high school. That's whenever I got above 300 pounds. And, whenever I started, I just got so addicted to like seeing the results. And I was somebody who like, if I put this much effort, I can see these results, that I just kept doing it. And like, so for me, like, I mean, I even go back and think like, okay, so I wasn't tracking any nutrition. I wasn't even knowing what I was doing in the gym, but the reality was every day I was going to the gym and like jumping on an elliptical machine for like 90, like I would train like with lifting weights for like an hour, and then I would be on an elliptical machine for like 90 minutes. And with my nutrition, I mean, this is like, I still don't know how I did this because I couldn't imagine doing it today. Like I would eat the exact same meal for every single meal. It was tilapia, broccoli, and rice. Every meal. I mean, I ate that meal at least 500 plus times in my life. And I eat the same. And so going back and thinking about it, well, yeah, I was probably eating way too few calories for what I probably should have been doing, because I lost 100 pounds. Like I lost my first 100 pounds in like 9 months. Like I lost it incredibly fast. I mean, I was really heavy to begin with. But one of the big things I always talk about, or that I really try to hammer home with people, is that like, yeah, it was awesome. I was seeing a lot of results, but then the 2 years after that, like after I had lost weight, that's really when things got hard.
Yeah.
Because it was easy for me because I was like this high school student. Like I didn't have a job. I didn't have any responsibilities, didn't have any things. So it was easy for me to get super addicted to this thing. But even me, like I kind of stopped hanging out with friends. I stopped doing things. I mean, I even quit sports because I was trying to lose weight. It was like this whole thing. And so then once I lost it, I was like, okay, now what? Because I had identified so long with just like losing weight. It's like, now what am I supposed to do? And it's that next step. And usually people in that situation, the statistic is like, we don't have like a weight loss problem. We have a weight maintenance problem, and people struggle to actually maintain it. And I was in this position where luckily I was able to maintain it, but it was not easy, right? There was a lot of struggle, both mentally, like both what I was doing day to day physically, but then also mostly mentally, like with relationships and everything. And so, so that kind of going back to your original question, like when I lost weight, I know that the way I went about doing it could have been so much better.
Yeah.
And that's what I really try to do now, is understanding that people are going to be motivated by weight loss, right? Because they want to change those results. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But really helping people really identify why, like the how of how they're going about losing weight, and all along the habits they're building, the knowledge they're building, help people gain that confidence so that when they do reach whatever their goal is or approach it, it's not this like, what's next thing? It's like, oh, I kind of already know what I'm doing, and I kind of have understanding already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And so with the actual weight loss journey itself, did you only start documenting it once it had finished and you'd started now finding the flexible dieting and if it fits your macros? Because that's obviously something that now is obviously part of your business and everything, is now the big flexible diet and the if it fits your macros, the sustainable weight loss. Was that something that you kind of left until after the weight loss transformation to then start documenting?
Yeah, probably, and mostly just because like while I was losing it, like it was just in the moment, it was all working, and so now all I can do is like look back on like the things I was doing. But it's funny that once I lost weight, that's really whenever I started to learn more about like flexible, and I learned about it out of like desperation, because like there had to be another way type of thing. And so through searching, I think the first thing I ever found was like an article by like it was like a bodybuilding article by Lane Norton, I think, or someone like that, who talked about this thing. I was like, what the heck's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really whenever I started to think more about that. And it's whenever I actually started to post more or share more information about fitness and stuff, like after my journey. So
yeah, so kind of from there, that's when it kind of you started with everything, with the Instagram and the growth of everything you've seen. So yeah, it's because obviously right now you're at obviously just over 400,000 followers. To kind of like when you finished your weight loss journey, started documenting to where you are now, is so impressive just to see. So like obviously in regards to the infographics that you're putting out and everything at the minute, how do you go about thinking about them, thinking about what you're actually going to put out? Because they vary so much. There's just so many different topics that you cover. Like, do you just kind of have like a mental note which just goes pop and it's like, I'm now going to talk about this, or write an infographic? Like, how do you do it?
Honestly, so it's funny how it started out with, like, I remember the first post that kind of got popular or people resonated with. It was like comparing like two pieces of like two different like breads brands.
Like
one was
like
calorie
comparisons, didn't it?
Comparisons, yes. Yeah, it started that way because that's what people were like shocked. They're like, holy crap, like this whole grain bread and stuff. Yeah. And so I started with that. And then I started shifting to other stuff. And honestly, it just came from, like, one thing I started doing was anytime somebody would ask me a question, I'd write it down and make sure that I had all these things that people are like interested in knowing about. And sometimes, I mean, I would wake up and spend 2 to 3 hours thinking, okay, what do I want to talk about today, or what are the ideas? I mean, it started with things that I was passionate about, that I knew like these things are important and need to be talked about. And then over time, you just keep thinking about those things and really, because the thing with fitness and nutrition and exercises, all this is, I always say, it's very simple in terms of like, what do you really need to do to, do the 90%? It's very simple. The problem is that just because it's simple, it's not always easy, and everybody learns differently. Like some people learn really well from infographics. Some people learn really well from podcasts or reading articles or doing all of this. And so my goal has just always been, especially with the infographics, present it in a way that I think is going to be the best received, or going to help people have the best takeaway with it. And it's also why something I'm really passionate about with the way that I do my infographics is like, I'm really focused on the caption too, because I know that's also important to get even more information. And so that's really what it is. Every day I just think about like, and now having like data from past graphics I've created, like what do people tend to, this makes the most sense, because it's kind of a balance of, you want it to be informative, but like you don't want to like put like an article on an infographic, because then it's like, it's going to be cluttered. It's not going to make any sense. So it's like, where's that balance to where you can give somebody like value, without, not giving them enough value, like being too vague or like kind of going too intense or they're not even going to look at it. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Yeah.
Just touching on the infographics themselves, how do you go about actually making them? Is it like a simple process where you can knock it up in like sort of 20-30 minutes, or?
Yeah, so I started. It's like I use this app. It's called Canva.com. Canva.com. So that, and a lot of people know about it now. That and like sometimes Photoshop, but now it's like I just got on there and started creating it, and it's kind of evolved over time, but it stayed pretty much the same, like with the title and stuff. And nowadays it's like I know what my template looks like, and that's so I'll like just kind of reuse a similar template with different information, obviously, how I'm presenting it. So it's funny how the graphic's the quickest part. The time that, like, what takes the most time is the caption and coming up with the idea and how to present the graphic, because the actual creating of it's easy. It's not that big of a square, it's just a little thing. So normally it's all like the ideas and preparation to actually put the pieces together.
For sure, because it always relates back to something, especially in the caption as well. And that's, I think a lot of people miss that trick on Instagram, is with the caption, they don't relate it to who they're talking to. Like your audience is then actually related in what you actually talk about in the caption. So is that something you always try and think about before you obviously think up a new post, is what is my niche really struggling with, and then that becomes the post for the day?
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, like all the content I share. I don't create. I've like never even created a post on like what's RPE or something like that. Like something that like, maybe I'll talk to a client about that later down the line. But like most of the people who I know, that the people who are following me are not necessarily in a position where they need to be worrying about manipulating certain pieces of their training program. That's not important. They're just not even there. A lot of people I work with, it's like, how can we get you to go to the gym consistently?
Yeah.
It's like that. We're just trying to get you to even go to the gym. And so that's incredibly important, obviously, with those graphics is, at one level, putting out information, but putting it out in a way where you know that the people who follow you, it's going to resonate with them the most, I guess. So yeah, it's super important.
No, it's a very, very true point. So with the actual momentum that you built, you had like a massive spike. I think was it last year or was the year before? When did you really notice momentum in your content, and how have you kind of kept that now with obviously the Instagram growth not being as good as it was? Because that's something that I think we've all struggled with. Like I've noticed a lot of online coaches I've spoke to on the podcast where they were doing really, really well with building up their following, their audience, and then suddenly it just kind of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah. So, and it's one of those things where, I mean, just social media in general, like there's always going to be that, like the people who are first. So like, I mean, I don't shy away from saying like one of the major benefits that I had with those infographics is that I was one of the first people to do them.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's always a part of it. Like the first person to do something in any area, they're going to have that benefit.
Yeah.
But a huge thing for me, especially in the past 6 months, has been really paying attention to the fact that, I guess as online coaches, depending on how you have your services set up, but let's just say that you're working with one-on-one clients, like, you know, even if you have 5,000 people following you on Instagram or even less, like that's 5,000 individuals.
Yeah.
And so something that I've really been, and it's hard at times because you want to keep growing, you want to keep like, what's the next viral thing going to be? But almost coming back into your like thinking about this and saying, okay, what am I doing for the people who are already following me? So something I've changed recently, and you've maybe even seen this on my Instagram, is I'm still doing infographics. I'm putting my face on there a lot more, or I'm posting a lot more stuff that isn't necessarily just information. I'm even talking about I'm telling stories.
Yeah.
And the thing is like I'll post, and it's funny how I'll post something like that, and I will lose followers. Like I will lose people who maybe followed me just because I had a cool infographic. Yeah. And for a while, I was like, I wanted to avoid that as much as possible. Like it scared me. Like I didn't want to see the number go down because I'm like, what's happening? But now I'm slowly learning that as I've been putting myself out there more in terms of just being more personable, as like this, this is how I go about doing things. Because when people come to work with you, they don't necessarily want to, like you have information, but they want to work with you. That's why they're choosing you. Yeah. And so they want to, that's the whole point of it. And ever since I've been doing that, like my Instagram hasn't been growing as quickly, but the engagement in the comments and even like, on the back end, like working with clients has grown significantly, just paying more attention to that, just because it's giving more value. And so it's almost why I put even more emphasis now on the caption or on just really working on relating it to them. Because the information is the information. Like this is how you figure out how many calories you need to eat, and it's the same, and it's always going to be the same for it. Nothing's going to dramatically change. So it's more about how can you like relay this information in a way that is not only going to help them, but also like hit them in a place where like, you're relating to them. But like, oh, that's why I'm struggling with this. I understand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for sure. So instead of like, I guess, adapting to the new algorithms as such and trying to think of new inquisitive ways, you're just really now focusing on actually connecting with your current followers to potentially turn into clients, because that's probably the wisest thing you can do. And I think a lot of people think too much about growing their followers, but not enough about actually connecting with them and actually building relationships with them.
And that's not to say that it's not important to like think about the algorithm, how to present information. But I think that, and I'm very guilty of this. That's why like I'm really passionate about it right now. Is it's really easy to get sucked into numbers. Like more is always better. I need to have more numbers, but that's not always the case. Impact. I was actually just talking to a friend, and he kind of talked about like impact is almost more important than like numbers. Like how much can you impact a smaller number of people rather than just like kind of impacting a larger number. It's like, what's the value there? So that's something I've really tried to shift towards, is like focusing less on how many likes is this post getting versus this post, or anything, and really just looking at everything as a whole, of like, I know this is valuable. People are commenting, people are messaging me, and, as long as things aren't like, obviously no one's enjoying it or whatever, then there might need to be something that needs to be changed. But just thinking about it in that way, as everyone who is following you as an individual, and like how can you speak to each one of those people as an individual, because the more that you can get with them on a personal level, like that's what's going to lead to obviously not only helping them more, but then also helping you more by getting more clients in the long run. So.
Cool. No, that's a great answer. And something I want to touch on, especially because I've seen it a lot, is new coaches trying to do the whole infographic thing. What do you think new coaches should be focusing on, especially in the Instagram environment now? Like, do you think they should be doing that, or do you think they should kind of focus on being themselves and their own content type thing?
So I think that, honestly, I think both to a degree. So like, I think that it's really important to keep putting yourself out there. Cause like one of the biggest mistakes I made was never putting myself out there.
Yeah.
And even though I had a big following, so like that was able to still grow clients, I didn't really see a big shift in my business until I started to actually, this is Carter Good's page. It's not like whenever people started to stop saying like, I love following, like this page, or like, I like following your page, to saying like, I like following you.
Yeah.
That's whenever like the big shift happened. So for new people who are coming in to do this, especially on Instagram, I mean, I would just say that the cool thing about Instagram is like infographics, for example, you know, it's not like they're dead or anything, but just go into creating these, just knowing that like, it's a way for you to like share information, or it's a way for you to like present information, and don't necessarily worry as much about like trying to make it go viral, because there's really no way to predict that, or if it's even going to happen. Like, just really focus on being as authentic as you can with that. And sometimes that might mean, you know, creating this idea with an infographic. Sometimes it might mean making a video, or even like playing to your strengths, right? Just because like maybe you don't like doing the infographics as much, like maybe focus more, maybe you like doing videos, like maybe you're really good at talking on videos and just doing it. I think that whatever it is, as long as you're providing value and you're consistently providing value, and then you're engaging with the people who are liking your content, because that's huge. It's like engaging with the people who actually follow you and like thanking them and messaging people. Even when, I mean, I try my best to go into DMs and like answer DMs as much as I can. Like that's really the value that's the thing that really adds up over time and creates your brand in the long run, rather than working on like trying to get a momentary, like this went viral one time. Because if you do that, you're gonna grow up your audience. And the thing is like with coaching clients specifically, you know, what I found is that somebody, like if I start working with somebody and if they've been following me for 6 to 12 months, like I already know like kind of where they're going to be at. Because most people who I work with who end up like, it's actually becomes a good coaching relationship are people who have been following me for a while. Not people who just like saw the graphic and then said, I want to work with you, right? Not say that never happened, but that's the whole thing. So almost remember, while you're putting out content, while there may not be an immediate return on investment, like your followers aren't jumping up or anything, the people who are seeing that are seeing it. And over time, you know, those are the people who eventually can become clients. Like, because they've been following you, building that. So it's really about building trust. And it just comes back to giving as much value as you can, knowing that the more you give value, the more trust you build, the more authentic you are. People will notice that. And those are the people who eventually will, you know, decide to go further with you.
No, that's actually a brilliant piece of advice, because I think a lot of we're all guilty of forgetting that things like confidence and the trust is all built up in the DMs as such. So when you're talking to potential clients, giving them free advice, and you'll find like 6 months down the line, that person that you spoke to and you gave outstanding advice to, or even sent a video message back to, they're going to sign up to you because you're that person that's helped them out for free as well. So
they remember that too. It's a huge thing. I mean, because I even do that with things that, like, I've done that with people that I look up to. Like people who I've even invested in, like, because I've worked with like fitness coaches for myself in different areas that maybe I'm not super confident in, like powerlifting, for example. Like the person I worked with was somebody who has answered my questions and who I trusted, and that's why I went with them. And so it's not even about doing some like shady marketing thing to get clients. It's like literally just being a good person and recognizing that you want to help people, and the people who resonate best with you, there's going to be those people out there. So you just have to trust that.
Exactly. No, it's a gold piece of advice. Cool. So let's talk about your actual coaching services, like what you actually give out and what's actually involved, because I think you've got a fair few different things, which is obviously good because of the size of your following. You've got to have something for the masses and obviously something personal as well. So how do you actually go about coaching in a minute? Do you have like one-on-ones? Do you have like challenges or anything that you're currently running right now? Like, talk us through that.
Yeah. So right now, it's funny that you kind of said that, because it's actually, I've kind of not been very good at diversifying, and I'm trying to do more of that now. Like through creating different programs and stuff. So my main thing is one-on-one coaching. Just and the way that I do it, and it's because, so like the people I work with, tend to be people who it's not like somebody who's extremely motivated to go to the gym and work out, and they just need like that expert guidance of like this many macros, this many this things. And like, if you tell them exactly what to do, they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with people like, I mean, it's funny. I always make a joke. Like most of the clients I work with tend to be like even like older females. It's just the way that it works out. And like, or just older clients in general is who I tend to work with. And it's honestly more based around consistency. Like, how can we build this into your life? And it's why I like one coaching with that kind of person, because it allows us to actually dive into their life. And which is really what I'm passionate about. So with my one-on-one coaching, it's more about the lifestyle stuff now. Now I'm kind of shifting more into like having a program or having things that are made by me that people can purchase who maybe wouldn't jump up to one-on-one coaching. Because that's one thing I learned is, there could be people who really value what I have and want to work with me, but they just can't, because it's, they just can't afford it or not in a position to do that. But, if you have other things, like, they'll want to buy it just because it's by you, because they trust what you have. So with that, I just released recently this home workout program. And I say, like, on the whole page, like, this is not magic. Like, you're not going to follow this and get it's going to change your entire life. This is literally a workout program. But I created it because I've had people time and time again say, like, I want your workout program. Like, I want a program that you created. And so that's kind of been my thing, is I'm, working with one-on-one, and I'm actually kind of slowly shifting into now thinking about other areas, whether it's a program or maybe later down the line, like some type of like membership thing, where it's like more of an inner circle kind of deal, that I would dive into, that would still give that value and I could still be present in, but would kind of, it's always good to kind of have other things going, so that you're not always tied into just one lane with your business. So.
Yeah, for sure. And do you find, I guess, with having the different like kind of packages and stuff, do you find that people struggle to pick what they want to choose from? Because there's something that a lot of the coaches listen to this, and myself, when we've had like multiple things out which people can buy, people are confused of what they should be getting into. So like, how do you kind of diversify that in your content and on your stories, and actually sending people to the right things?
Yeah, honestly, and it's this is like the one area, like, and I'm still growing and expanding, because right now it's very much, it's not as automated in terms of like, this person likes this, so they're going to go into here. It really comes down to, if I'm communicating with somebody, like, that's when I kind of figure out where they're at. Because they're like, I'll be communicating with somebody and they're going through, so like whenever I bring on a client, like they filled out a form and now they're, answering these questions, and I always have like a phone call before I'm talking to a client. Just because I think that's important to hear that. Like, I mean, there have been times whenever we've been talking and we're like, you know what, maybe this isn't the best step right now, is to be a coaching client. And maybe it's, instead of like following this program or doing this, or even like reading this article and like asking me questions just through email over time. And it's one of those things, because it's you get into a position where, especially when you're starting out, you want to bring on everybody. And it's definitely a value to doing it at some level to learn about who you work best with. But what I've learned over time, it's kind of a hard lesson, because sometimes it's like, I want to work with that person because it's another client and it's growing my business. But sometimes, that maybe you shouldn't be working with that person one-on-one, or maybe they're not in that position. You figure out a month later, they probably weren't in that right spot. And so for me right now, it's honestly more of just making sure that I'm being diligent whenever I am bringing on a client, almost as if it's an interview, in a sense, for them as well. Like, they're interviewing me, should I be your coach? I'm kind of in my mind interviewing them, like, should you be my client? And should we do this? And it's hard to do that, whenever you are trying to build your clients too. But that's really the only way that I have that set up right now, is just trying to, and then making sure that I have things to point people towards. Once I kind of determine if we would be a good coaching client or not. So
no, that's good. I think we're all sort of guilty of trying to take everyone on at once, and then realizing that a month into the kind of coaching client relationship that they're probably not right for one-on-one. So it's good that you obviously just have that kind of pick and choose, I guess, and making sure that they're going to be the right fit for coaching sometimes.
And I would even say, just on that, because it's one thing to say that when you're just starting out, and you have the time, I mean, you can really help a lot of people. Like, there could be value in doing that. But I just think it's important to always like learn from, like, the reason I love coaching one-on-one still is because I'm learning a lot not only about, people who are following me, but like how to be a better coach,
Yeah,
right?
for
Is
sure.
you do that through actually doing. I mean, you have the information. So over time, I think that's something that maybe gets more intuitive as well,
Yeah.
is you start to learn this is the type of person who would work best with me, and this maybe person wouldn't. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's going to help both of you.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, shoot, I don't want to bring this person on, but like it's going to help them because maybe they weren't right for it. It's going to help you because you don't have to, that there's probably a better route.
Yeah.
So
No, that's a great piece of advice. And just to touch on quickly, I know we did dive into it a little bit, but what about your free challenges? Do you have any kind of free things that people can get from your websites, your Instagram, where they can just go and get more info from you?
yeah, so like my biggest thing right now, it's this thing called the 14-day Fat Loss Forever course.
Okay.
And basically what this is just an email course. So it's essentially like a lead magnet, right? Where you have
Yeah.
somebody sign, here's this PDF. The way that I set it up, where instead of having a physical PDF, here's this thing, it's actually an email course.
Yeah.
Where like every day they're getting an email from me instead of like putting it all in one big thing. And that's actually been one thing that I've really recommended people do, or at least try if they're creating a free thing. Like I love courses like that, like free courses, because it almost creates more engagement. It's not this thing where it's like, hey, here's this free thing, and they forget they can open it because it's just big long PDF. Instead, it's this thing they're getting emailed every single day, because it's a good way to kind of build more, I guess, engagement with people who are actually going through the course. So that's where a lot of people, so they get obviously the free content that they consume on Instagram, and then I have my website, and normally people who find me for coaching will go through like my links, right? Like on Instagram, they'll go to my website, he has online coaching, and do that. Or they'll go through the 14-day course that I have, which is basically just like, it's, it just goes over everything in 14 days, like how do you set up your diet, all this, all that. And through that course, like I have a lot of times where I'm like, hey, reply to this email and let me know like what your biggest struggle is or whatever. And so every day I'm kind of like answering emails and this, building that engagement with my email list too. But yeah, that's kind of my free thing right now. I'm actually in the process of kind of building another kind of free little thing, but that's kind of been the one that I've used just because it's worked pretty well. So
yeah. And then I take it off the back of that, you've then got your email list, which you then email out every week from that. Yeah. So how many times are you emailing at the minute? Because something that we here at the online sort of online fitness business, we do recommend sort of roughly about 3 times a week. But obviously, I'm not sure what your kind of take on your emails are.
No, yeah. So that's something where it could be a lot more structured than it is. I probably email out like at least once to twice a week.
Yeah.
I'm actually in the process of, I want to have more like automation in a sense of like having like content created, so that, because what I love to do with emails and why I love that course is what it does is I have the email already written, but it's written in a way where it's very encouraging to like reply to this, ask me for things. Like there's one email I send out where I say, hey, I know I've gone over a lot of information. Would you like a free recap report? Yeah. Like a PDF that kind of covers this? If you want that, just reply and let me know. And so then I'll get, and it kind of, that's my favorite thing. And it's all essentially just like Instagram DMs, but just, an email. And like if you're corresponding one-on-one, and it's one of those things where, at some level it's like, that's not necessarily super scalable in the way that I do it. But when it comes to like bringing on coaching clients, that's the way that I've found that works really well right now is email, like creating those things. And then a lot of times having those one-on-one engagements via email. But in terms of like just writing a random broadcast or just like a one-off email, I would say like maybe once to twice a week. And usually it's the way I have it structured in the, the back end is like people who have already been through this course and they're just like on my email list. It's normally more like, hey, this is what's going on this week, or this is this idea that I had today. Kind of thing. It's honestly very much, it's almost more like a personal blog at that point, of like, here's this thing that's on my mind. It could have, sure. But I try to keep it engaged just because I know it's very important and in doing that. So I could definitely learn a lot from I've actually been following you guys for a while, and there's a lot of email stuff that I could probably learn from being a bit more consistent with it, or having a bit better systems in place.
I think everyone's got their own kind of specific, which they do really, really well. And I think that's actually leading me on to my next question, is about your kind of your target focus when it comes to content. Like, what is your primary focus? Like each day, what do you think I need to get this done as a content piece out? Like, obviously, it's obviously not email because that's kind of like a once or twice a week thing. And guests that we've had in the past, they're like, YouTube has got to be done 2 to 3 times a week because that's their niche. Is like Instagram post once a day your kind of thing?
Oh yeah. Yeah, Instagram posts once a day. I'm actually like, I've been stepping back a bit and some days not posting, but like really, like I'm spending a lot more time right now writing those Instagram captions and getting more engagement, because it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, where my goal right now isn't necessarily to try to continue like growing my audience. I want to really build a deeper connection, and so I'm really focused on that. But I would say that every day, like my biggest things are client emails. I'm talking to clients pretty consistently every day, and then Instagram is normally the number one, whether it's a post or if it's just simply like going on and doing stories or doing DMs or something like that, just because that's my biggest platform. And it makes sense, like wherever you have the most attention should probably be where you're putting a lot of your effort into.
For sure.
And I am slowly starting to shift more towards other platforms now that I'm not posting as frequently. But that's definitely still the most days Instagram is the main focus in terms of putting out content.
I think something I definitely noticed that a lot of trainers are guilty of is just putting out content for the sake of content. Like if you can't think of a post, and then just putting out something which isn't that much value. And it's something I stress over as well. Like I always try and get one post out a day, but sometimes I think to myself, is it worth waiting, thinking about it, and then posting something the next day when it's probably going to be a bit better? So we're all caught in that trap sometimes, I think.
Oh, for sure. And the thing that always gets me through that, because I've felt that way for a long time. I mean, there was a streak where I had posted on Instagram for like 180 straight days. And so like it started this, at that point, it was honestly like a streak thing. Like I didn't want to break the streak, but I started to recognize that. That's actually, it's similar to that. I'm not even gonna log. I'm just gonna go in and just like add a quick ad just so that I can keep that streak going. For some weird reason, but exactly. But I get that mindset, and so something that actually helps me through that is sometimes I just think if I put something out somewhere, that's a win. Like whether it's so with the Instagram thing, I might not put a post out every single day now, but on days when I'm not posting, I might be more engaged with my story.
For sure.
Like I might be more focused on helping in that way. Just because it's a little bit different. Sometimes with stories, like you don't have to be as creative, and you kind of be more in the moment. Or the new function that I love that I just tried for the first time was like the questions thing, like asking questions on the story. And so like today, for example, like I'm not posting anything today, but yesterday I posted, a selfie and said, hey, ask me your questions. I'm going to answer 20 or 30. So the 2 hours I would have spent on Instagram, like writing a caption, or 3 hours, maybe even longer, creating a post and caption, all this, I'm now putting into answering these questions on my story. Just because, sometimes I can't think of because sometimes it's easier to answer other people's questions than to like come up with like the new content all the time. But the cool thing about this is now I'm getting all these questions, which is now giving me ideas for this week. What should I create content around, right? Super important to listen to what people are asking you, and if you identify what's something that's reoccurring that they're asking you, that's probably stuff that you should talk about in your content that you're creating too.
No, 100%. And also as well, it kind of, if that person's asked you it and you've seen that you've actually went and answered it on your story, it then creates another conversation in the DM. So
exactly.
All spirals.
Exactly right. That's like the weird thing right now is it's and like I'm the first one to say, like I am not an expert at all in running my own business or doing, and I don't think any of us are. Like the thing that I love is like no one really knows what they're doing. We're just like kind of looking at trends and being smart about things. But for me, I really do believe, especially with Instagram, because it's so engaging, like the more that one-on-one you can get, the more engagement you can get with the people that are already following you, the better. And I think that honestly that helps you grow too, like on the back end. Just like I have a lot of people who have followed me that say like in the DMs, hey, my sister told me to follow you and I'm so glad that I did. I've lost 20 pounds. Like that's the kind of thing, like the sister liked my content so much that she was like, okay, I'm going to tell my sister about this and then she's going to follow me. So
perfect advice. Cool. So in terms of like obviously Instagram and who you follow, who do you take inspiration from? Because we've all got specific people in our niches that we really do take inspiration from? Like, who is someone you look up to in your field?
So, man, there's a lot. One who he's actually he's a good friend, Jordan Syatt.
Yeah.
He's always, I mean, me and Jordan have been friends for a while now, and I've always looked up to him all the time. Like, because we were even friends. It's funny, like we were friends before he became like Gary Vee's trainer. And so like and what's funny is like I was a fan of Gary Vee, and I was friends with Jordan, and then this thing happened, and I was like, oh, that's cool. So like it's just awesome watching that happen. But definitely him, just because he's like just the content that he does and like the audience that he's grown and the engagement is honestly really special. Like it's I really look up to the way that he does things, and he always gives me great advice. Someone else I really look up to more maybe from like a fitness standpoint is like Lane Norton.
Yeah, for sure.
I've always loved Lane Norton, especially he was just on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. But I just like what he's very much like not the only way that you do this, and if you don't do this way, you're stupid. He's very much like, this is what we know to be true, but everyone has their own individual differences. And so a lot of the content that I create is based around what he does. And I think he does a good job of presenting that, because he's kind of in a position where it's easy to get hated on because by people who are maybe like, no, what you say is stupid or whatever. And he always does a good job of like being honest and saying like, listen, like that does work, but I don't think it's the best way to do things. And so I would say those two are people that I really look up to.
They're definitely cool guys, and I've followed Lane for a very long time now, and also Jordan as well. We could try and get Jordan on the show at some point when he gets
He's like traveling. I think he's like in Europe right now.
Say again.
I think he's like in Europe or something right now.
Yeah,
he's just like traveling with Gary everywhere.
I know, yeah, it must be a mental lifestyle. So if we ever get him 20 minutes, then I think we'll be lucky.
Exactly, yeah.
So what's the kind of the plans going forward for you now? Like, what things have you got in the pipe work? Like any future projects coming up that we sort of can hear about? Maybe, I don't know whether they're a secret or not, but
No, yeah, I'm pretty open about everything, just because it kind of goes back to it. Like, I mean, it's really just something where you learn as you go kind of thing. But right now, I'm continue with coaching. My next goal is to really, I want to build like this from a business standpoint, like with like building like this program. Like I want to make sure that it's like this home workout program I've already created. I want to have it in a system where like now people can like go in. It's not just this thing that's sitting there. There's like content that leads up to it and education. And then like, here's this program if you want this program, like building, I guess, more of like a funnel with it, right? Where people can get to it. A long-term goal that I have is to eventually do something with like a membership thing. Like whether it's like a lower end membership thing where it's more engaged, maybe it's like a Facebook Live type of thing where I go in and do that. But for right now, honestly, it's more about just like my main goal, especially for like the next 3 months, is to really focus on building more engagement and really try to be, still create content and still put it out there and still do that the best I can, but really focus on the people who are already following me and identify with them the best that I can, knowing that in the long run, whether it's on Instagram or maybe another platform, they come out with some new Instagram 2.0, like knowing that, there are people who are still engaged with me on this and they'll, follow me to other platforms. That's kind of my goal right now, is to really build a deeper relationship with a lot of the people who are already resonating with my message and, are kind of in my niche, I guess. Right.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a good goal to have. Like, I think just developing what you already have now, and really just focusing on that, because what you've got obviously with your following and your one-on-one clients, and just becoming a better coach, like you said, you love doing that, and I can hear that and speaking to you that is what you really want to develop. So it's always nice to see that, actually. So yeah, it's good. So some cool goals to work towards. So where can we kind of find out more about yourself anyway? Like, where's the best place, obviously apart from Instagram?
Honestly, I think my username, like I did this early on. I think everything's just Carter Good. Like if you go to cartergood.com, that's my website. Instagram, obviously instagram.com/cartergood. I think like YouTube's Carter Good. Like most of the time I'm on Instagram or like Facebook tend to be two of the bigger places, and my website. I mean, I have a YouTube channel. I'll be honest, I don't post on it. I posted on it a while back, and I plan to do it more. But honestly, any social media platform, it's just Carter Good. That's usually the easiest way to find me. So
awesome. What we'll do is in the show notes as well, we'll put all of your links to all of your website and everything as well. So if anyone wants to go and check it out, which I assume you all will do and should do anyway, go and check out the show notes for Carter's website. So it's been great having you on. That's 45 minutes has just flown by, but I think we've got loads and loads of advice and great tips which the listeners will be able to take away from today. So really do appreciate you coming on, mate.
Absolutely, I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. So that wraps up the 12th episode of the Online Trainer Show. So thank you again, guys, and thank you again, Carter, for coming on. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys.